Before this video begins, let me ask you something. What if one small act of kindness could change the life of a powerful billionaire's daughter and a struggling single father forever? Today's story isn't about money or status. It's about heart, resilience, and a moment that left a mother in tears. If stories like this inspire you, take 1 second to subscribe, share this video with someone who needs hope, and drop a comment below to let us know where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more meaningful stories like this. Now let's start this video. The garage was quiet except for the low hum of a tired fluorescent light and the faint ticking of a cooling engine. Daniel Carter stood alone in the middle of the space, wiping grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better days. This garage wasn't just where he worked, it was where he survived. Every dented tool and oil-stained surface carried the weight of years spent fixing what others had given up on. As a single father, Daniel had learned to stretch time, money, and strength beyond their limits, because quitting was never an option when a child depended on you. His life had narrowed to simple priorities after his wife passed away. Mornings were for getting his son Noah ready for school, evenings for homework and cheap dinners, and nights for quiet thoughts he rarely allowed himself to feel. Daniel didn't dream anymore. Not because he didn't want to, but because dreams cost energy he couldn't spare. He focused on what was in front of him: broken engines, unpaid bills, and a growing boy who deserved stability. Every repair was done carefully, not just to earn money, but to protect his reputation as a man who fixed things right. That afternoon, an unfamiliar sound rolled into the garage, smooth and powerful, cutting through the usual noise of old cars and strained engines. Daniel looked up to see a luxury vehicle so polished it reflected the cracked walls around it. It felt out of place, like a stranger wandering into a forgotten neighborhood. The driver stepped out first, an elegant woman whose posture carried authority and worry at the same time. From the passenger side emerged a young woman moving slowly, leaning on a cane, her expression calm but guarded. Daniel approached with the same respect he gave everyone. He didn't ask who they were or where they came from. To him, all cars broke the same way, and all people deserved fairness. As he examined the engine, he felt the young woman's eyes on him. There was no judgment in her gaze, only curiosity. When she introduced herself as Sophia, her voice was steady, but her movements betrayed a constant effort to stay balanced. Daniel recognized that look instantly, the look of someone fighting their own body every day. As he worked, conversation began naturally, without effort. Sophia spoke about how she used to dance, how movement once felt effortless and joyful. Then she spoke about the accident, the sudden violence that stole her freedom and replaced it with pain, therapy, and endless appointments. Daniel didn't interrupt. He knew what it meant to lose a future you never imagined living without. When he finally spoke, his words were simple but sincere. He understood loss, not as an idea, but as a permanent companion. When the repair was finished, Daniel refused extra payment, brushing it off as nothing important. But for Eleanor, Sophia's mother, it was everything. She had spent her life believing money could solve any problem. Yet here stood a man who gave help without asking for anything in return. As they prepared to leave, Sophia looked back at the garage, at the man and his son sitting quietly in the corner. Something inside her shifted, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope mixed with purpose. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of that garage refused to fade. Sophia found herself thinking not about the car, but about the way Daniel worked, calm and focused, as if fixing engines gave him peace. She remembered how he never looked at her with pity, only with respect. That feeling followed her into therapy sessions and doctor visits, pushing her to try harder, to stand longer, to believe that broken didn't mean finished. For the first time since the accident, she wanted more than recovery, she wanted direction. When Sophia returned to the garage weeks later, it wasn't because something was broken, it was because she needed to be there. Daniel saw it in her eyes immediately, the same determination he saw in people who refused to give up. She didn't ask for sympathy or favors, she asked to learn. And as Daniel hesitated, weighing responsibility against instinct, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. The quiet realization that sometimes helping someone else heal could also begin to heal parts of yourself you thought were lost. Forever. Daniel didn't answer. Sophia right away. He looked at her hands, steady despite the effort it took for her to stand, and then at her eyes, focused and unafraid. He had learned over the years to recognize empty curiosity from real resolve. And what he saw in front of him was real. Finally, he nodded. He didn't promise anything big, only time, patience, and honesty. For Sophia, that was more than enough. From that day on, the garage became more than a workplace. It became a space where broken things were understood, not judged. At first, Sophia only watched. She learned the names of tools, the language of engines, the quiet logic behind every repair. Daniel adjusted the workspace without making it obvious, lowering benches, modifying grips, and slowing the pace when needed. He never treated her as fragile, only as someone learning a craft. Noah often sat nearby, observing with wide eyes. He had never seen someone fight so hard just to stand there and learn. And without realizing it, Sophia was teaching him strength without saying a word. As weeks passed, Sophia's confidence grew. She started stronger balance, physical therapist assisting with simple tasks, then more complex longer endurance. But what surprised everyone most was her emotional change. The frustration that once lived behind her eyes softened into determination. She laughed again. She spoke about the future without fear. Eleanor watched this transformation quietly, her heart caught between gratitude and guilt. She had given her daughter everything money could buy. Yet this small garage had given her what money never could. One evening, Eleanor stayed behind after closing. She watched Daniel lock up, his movements tired but disciplined. With tears in her eyes, she thanked him. Daniel brushed it off, saying Sophia was doing the hard work herself. But Eleanor knew better. She had seen how respect, not treatment, had rebuilt her daughter. She asked Daniel to visit their home, not as a mechanic but as a guest. Reluctantly, he agreed, unsure of what awaited him. The mansion felt unreal to Daniel. The silence, the space, the perfection made him uncomfortable. Eleanor didn't waste time. She spoke openly, emotionally about fear, about watching her daughter fade despite endless resources. Then she offered him something that made his breath catch. She wanted to fund a new garage, fully equipped under Daniel's leadership, a place where people like Sophia could learn, where struggling mechanics could find opportunity, and where dignity came before profit. Daniel tried to refuse. He wasn't used to gifts, especially ones that big. But Eleanor insisted, her voice breaking as she spoke about gratitude, about hope, about watching her daughter walk farther than doctors ever expected. When Sophia entered the room, standing taller than ever before, Daniel understood that this wasn't about money. It was about impact. He accepted, not for himself, but for the future he saw forming. The new garage opened months later. It was bright, accessible, and alive with purpose. Daniel hired people others had overlooked, trained them with patience, and built a team rooted in respect. Sophia became a partner, leading adaptive training programs and proving every day that ability wasn't defined by limitations. Noah ran through the space after school, proud of his father, inspired by the community around him. On opening day, Eleanor stood quietly, tears streaming down her face. She watched her daughter stand strong, watched Daniel smile without exhaustion for the first time in years, and watched a room full of people given second chances. In that moment, she realized that the greatest investment she had ever made wasn't financial. It was trusting a good man to do what he did best. The story didn't end with wealth or recognition. It ended with meaning. A single dad mechanic didn't just repair engines. He repaired belief, restored purpose, and reminded everyone, watching, that sometimes the most powerful change begins in the smallest, most